Now that we've got the beginnings of our pivot table built, let's start to modify it and get it to summarize the data that we want. Now, before we move forward here, I'm going to move my big fat head there. Right now, it's right on top of the pivot table field list. So let's get it out of there. I'm just going to switch my scene here. All right, there we go. So you still got the audio there, but you'll have to wait for my head to come back. So, all right. So as a quick reminder, before we start building the pivot table, our pivot table is currently linked or connected back to this source right here. So our beautiful little table. This table contains various columns. We got a column header for year, for month, for type, salesperson, and so on, and all the corresponding records down below. Now, the beauty of a pivot table is we can now take those column headers. If I go back to my pivot table worksheet and take a look at the field list here, we've got those same column headers: year, month, type, salesperson, region, and so on. So what we get to do now is take those headers and place them into one of these 4 sections that make up our pivot table. Now, in the earlier edition, I dropped in the month into the row section, I dropped the type into the columns, and the sales into the row. I didn't use the filters. We will talk about filters. There's actually a couple different ways to be able to filter the results of your pivot tables. For example, I don't want to see all the products or every year or every month. Then I can filter the results of that summary data through the pivot table. But like I said earlier, it's actually a really simple process to build the pivot table. You just drag the fields into these 4 sections. Let's try it out. So I'm going to grab month, just left click on it, drag it down to the row section. Boop. And we've got, I'm going to zoom in here, we got the beginnings of our pivot table. So in the row section, I've now got the unique months. Remember, this is all based on this data here. Where's the month? This guy right here. So it's taken those month values, grouped them together, right, to give us the unique data set for just each month. Now, what if I want to get total sales? I want to know how much we sold for each month. Well, really simple. I just grab the sales field and I drag that down to the value section. Now I've got it broken up by month and total sales for each month. 2 little drags of the mouse, right? And we've summarized those 300 plus records. Could be thousands of records. A couple of drags of the mouse and you've summarized the data. Now let's break it out even more. This is great, but what if I want to include the various products, right? I want to know, okay, great, we got a monthly breakdown for sales, but now I want to break down in each month the products. So I go back to my field list. I'm going to grab type, which is the product, like ice cream, tasty treats, and so on. I grab product and I drop that into the columns section. Look at that. 3 drags of the mouse and we've got a nice summary of those hundreds of records. Something that we can now make some more intelligent decisions about, right? Rather than just looking at a mass set of records, which is great. We need that information. Somebody needs to maintain that. But we've now summarized it right here. What do you think? How quick is that? Right? Like I said earlier, I get people that come into my Excel courses and in my Excel classes and they say, I got to learn pivot tables. I got to learn them. I heard all about them. I've heard that they're difficult to work with, building them and so on. They're really not. Click and drag, build your pivot table. I mentioned this also earlier. The most time-consuming portion of building a pivot table is deciding this right here. Deciding how you want to lay it out. What is it that you want to display? Do you want a sum of sales by month? Do you want a sum of sales by salesperson? Really, and that's going to be dictated by what your report is. Who are you showing this off to? What do they want to see? What's your meeting about, right? You're going to be going into a meeting. They want some summary information. I want X, Y, and Z. And you quickly build that inside of Excel, inside of a pivot table. Now, you imagine this. You're sitting down at that meeting and you're going through this table and somebody says, this is great information. I get to see the sales for each month broken up by product. That's great. Well, actually, instead of month, I want to see it broken up by salesperson. Can you do that for us? No problem. Watch this. So I just grab month, I drag it out, drop it someplace empty. Month is gone. Now I've got it kind of odd. It's kind of a horizontal list here of products, and I got total sales, which is nice. But I can grab salesperson, and I can drag that down to the rows, and we've now got it broken up by salesperson. Again, just a few clicks of the mouse, summarize the data. So try this out. Experiment about a bit. Drag stuff into there, drag it out, see what you get, right? What is it that you would want to see based on that sales data list that we were looking at earlier? Try it out.